But almost immediately, another conversation began to surface, quieter, sharper, and far more uncomfortable. What happens to everything he left behind? Rob Reiner did not simply leave memories, he left an empire. A financial structure built carefully across decades, designed to survive long after the credits rolled. His estimated net worth at the time of his death stood at approximately $200 million, according to industry sources and celebrity net worth. That number alone demands attention, but it barely tells the story. Because Rob Reiner's wealth was not concentrated in a single asset. It was spread across properties, companies, rights, contracts, and revenue streams that continue to generate money every single day. This was not lottery money. This was not sudden success. This was generational, layered institutional wealth. It began with visibility. His role as Mike Stivic on All in the Family made him a household name, but acting was never the endgame. The real financial shift came when Rob Reiner moved behind the camera. When he began directing films that did not just perform well at the box office, but entered the permanent cultural bloodstream. Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, This Is Spinal Tap. When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, these films are not seasonal hits. They are evergreen assets. They live on cable rotations, streaming libraries, anniversary re-releases, classroom discussions, and curated film lists. Every appearance carries licensing fees. Every broadcast generates residuals. Every digital stream contributes to a revenue chain that never fully stops. But Rob Reiner understood something even more important than hit making. He understood ownership. In 1987, he founded Castle Rock Entertainment. Named after a fictional town from Stephen King's universe, the company would go on to become one of the most influential production houses in Hollywood. Castle Rock produced films and television series that defined entire eras. It operated quietly, strategically, and profitably. Through Castle Rock, Rob Reiner positioned himself not just as a creative force, but as a corporate one. He sat at the intersection of art and infrastructure. Even as ownership structures evolved over the years, Reiner remained deeply involved. He served as CEO. Michelle Singer Reiner served as co-president alongside Matthew George. This was not symbolic leadership. In 2021, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that Castle Rock planned to invest $175 million into its film division. That level of capital commitment signals confidence, expansion, and long-term planning. This was a company preparing for future returns, not closing its doors. Which means that at the moment of Rob Reiner's death, revenue was still flowing.
I vape, but I don't need to vape, you know? I only do it when my friends do it, or on the weekends.
Deals were still active, projects were still in development, royalties were still accumulating. His estate did not freeze creativity. It only froze control. Then there was real estate. The Brentwood
All right, pretty interesting. So he generates all this wealth, right? Yeah, not only money, but properties, businesses, film, uh, corporations, and everything, Castle Rock, movies, and everything. He created that. So he generates all this wealth, right? Now he's been married a couple times. Now a lot of people forget that he was married to the one lady that was in Laverne and Shirley. I forget her name, but her father was Papa John from Mamas and the Papas uh, music band. All right, so he was married to her supposedly, and then he got married again. So you're dealing with there might be a lot of people in the will, right? There might be other kids in the will, the other wife that he had and stuff. So he generates all this wealth. Now that alone, they're saying he was worth over million or something like that, or maybe more than that, because as we're hearing in this video, that them projects continue to bring in uh, wealth and money, royalties, ownership of it, yada yada yada. So big money there, and not just like right off of the bat. This is money that has been generated that they don't have enough money to pay Mr. Reiner up front. So the money is paid in installments and royalties and stuff like that. That royalties, I mean, if they keep playing anything that has his name on it, he gets royalties for it. It could be 50, 100 years from now if they're still playing his movies. They're still going to collect royalties on it. So very interesting. Let's continue to listen. Hello, how you doing there, Mr. Trump? I see you've gone crazy on the internet today. If some, can't you just sit and just watch TV for a while? I mean, I'd tell you smoke a doobie and relax, but that probably wouldn't help it. You've just been all over the YouTube streets today, Mr. Trump. I've seen all the videos you've been putting out and everything. I know you're not going to let anyone cross that line in Venezuela. That's unreal. He's got everything blocked up. But let's get back to this video.
Home itself sat on some of the most valuable land in Los Angeles. Properties in that area are not simply homes. They are investment vehicles, long-term stores of value. It is widely believed that the Reiners held additional property interests through trusts or holding entities, though details remain private. Add to that investment portfolios, deferred compensation agreements, back-end profit participation, and intellectual property rights, and the scale of the estate becomes clear. This was not an inheritance that could be casually divided. It required planning, and Rob Reiner was known for planning. He was also known for family. Rob Reiner is survived by 4 children. Tracy Reiner, his adoptive daughter from his marriage to Penny Marshall. Jake Reiner. Nick Reiner. Romy Reiner. Publicly,
That was her name, Penny Marshall, who was the daughter of Mamas and the Papas. So she had money, right? Because to this day they still play the Mamas and the Papas on the radio. Every time it's played, they get royalties from it, or every time a record sells, they get royalties from it. I don't think they get royalties from the radio stations like Mr. Gene Simmons is trying to get, but they get royalties every time they sell a song. Someone downloads it, whatever, yada yada. They get a piece of that money.
the family maintained a relatively low profile compared to other Hollywood dynasties. There were no reality shows, no tabloid-driven feuds, no public battles over money, until now, because one name changed everything. Nick Reiner. According to records obtained by people from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, Nick Reiner was taken into custody and is currently being held on $4 million bail in connection with the deaths of his parents. Authorities have not yet finalized charges. Investigators have repeatedly emphasized that the case remains ongoing. Autopsy results are pending. No final conclusions have been publicly announced. Due process remains central, but inheritance law does not wait for emotional closure. The moment Nick Reiner became legally connected to the investigation, a silent alarm was triggered inside the estate structure. Attorneys who specialize in probate and trust law immediately recognized the implications. Trustees understood what could be coming. Because regardless of public sympathy or personal tragedy, California law operates with brutal clarity when it comes to inheritance, and the question that began circulating was no longer whispered. Will Nick Reiner inherit any of his father's fortune? At first glance, many assume the answer is yes. Blood is blood. Family is family. But California does not work on sentiment. It works on statutes. And there is one principle embedded in state law that has the power to erase an heir entirely. At this stage, nothing is settled. The estate remains legally suspended. Assets are managed but not distributed. Revenue continues to accrue but remains untouched. Castle Rock Entertainment continues operations, but ownership transitions are paused. Every dollar waits, every decision waits, because everything depends on how one name is ultimately written into the final legal record. And until that moment,
All right. So what they're saying, like everything's changed because now he was like owner of these businesses, and his wife was president of them. He was CEO, and she was like president or whatever. And they owned all this stuff, and now they're gone. So who takes over Castle Rock is my question. And from what they're saying, that this has become a problem because all the money, you know, did Nick do it? Okay, he could say he wasn't there. He left. Something happened. We don't know what yeah, they're claiming it's him. Now being that, what if Nick was in the will? What if they left Nick a lot of money because of his problems and everything. They felt bad for him, whatever. Now you have to take in consideration of what the other family members think. The other kids and everything. Uh, and I'm sure they talked about all this because that's what families do, right? They let you know what you're going to get if something happens to them, yada yada yada. And it's normal stuff, normal family stuff. So that could be a problem right now. It could look like something other than what it was. Now, it could also be, did Nick get rid of him because Nick wasn't getting as much as the other kids? And he got jealous and got rid of him. Who knows? But let's continue. Hello, Miss Ownback Pecky Peck.
arrives, Rob Reiner's $200 million legacy exists in a state of uncertainty, balanced between inheritance and exclusion, between bloodline and law, between a son's name and a verdict that could determine whether he receives nothing at all. While the public conversation revolved around shock, grief, and unanswered questions, a very different process was already underway behind closed doors. It did not involve cameras or statements. It involved documents, clauses, and contingency plans that had likely been drafted years before anyone imagined they would ever matter this way. Because when someone like Rob Reiner dies, especially under circumstances this serious, the system moves fast. Not emotionally, but procedurally. Estate attorneys begin by locking everything down. Accounts are reviewed. Trust administrators are notified. Temporary controls are put in place. Nothing is distributed. Nothing is promised. Every asset enters a holding pattern. And in cases where a potential heir is connected to an ongoing criminal investigation, that holding pattern becomes absolute. Rob Reiner's will has not been made public. That is by design. High net worth individuals rarely rely on simple wills alone. Instead, they build layered estate plans using irrevocable trusts, holding companies, and private agreements that keep wealth structured and protected. These documents often
Wow. When you got that much money, he probably had it set up where, I've heard some stories about people that passed away, and they hired people. They wrote a will, they had someone in charge of the will, but they also had someone watching that person that was in charge of the will. right? And all the stuff and everything. They had someone watching him. I've seen stories where people have passed and they thought they didn't get anything, right? They thought, oh, I lost a family member and that's just how it is, you know, didn't get anything willed to me or anything like that, or don't have any property. And then one day, someone out of the blue is following you around, asking questions, and then one day they knock on your door, your grandfather passed away and he wanted me to give you this, bag full of money, 10, $12 million, and just walk away. They just walk away. And, you know, this was my job. I knew your grandfather way back, and he trusted me with this, and he couldn't trust the lawyers and the rest of the family, and he wanted you to have this. I've seen that happen before, because you never know. But see, he had so much money. I mean, he was a big hitter in Hollywood. He owned film companies and stuff. That all gets shut down. I don't know if it'll get shut down. It'll probably continue to go on and create money, and money will be put into that account. But now the lawyers will take over, and the people that he trusted to make sure that all the kids got what they got, or some of the family members not getting anything. I know it's sad, but some people are like it. You think, their family, we love them, we'll always love them, but when they pass and they're worth millions, you don't get anything. Yeah, you know, and like Mr. Reiner said in the beginning of this video, that blood is blood, you know, and you usually leave your stuff to your family, even if you hate them or whatever, other than give it away to someone else. But it's 2025. People think a lot different now, and the world's been possessed by the devil. So, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it if some schmo is in control of everything. He left it all to Ronald McDonald. I wouldn't doubt it.
Contain detailed instructions for succession, asset management, and beneficiary distribution. They anticipate divorce, incapacity, death, and even disputes among heirs. What they cannot anticipate is a scenario where one of the heirs becomes legally entangled in the death itself. That is where the law steps in. In California, inheritance is not automatic. It is conditional. Even if a person is named explicitly in a will or trust, their right to inherit is not absolute. It can be challenged, delayed, or suspended depending on circumstances. And when there is an active investigation involving a potential beneficiary, the system errs on the side of restriction. This means that for now, Nick Reiner's position within the estate is neither confirmed nor denied. It is frozen. He exists in a legal grey zone where nothing moves forward on his behalf. He cannot receive distributions. He cannot exercise control. He cannot influence decisions related to the estate. His status is unresolved, and that unresolved status casts a long shadow over everything else. For the other heirs, this creates a strange and heavy limbo. Tracy Reiner.
Aha. This might be why Alan Jackson took the case on. See, yes, he committed the murders. They might have charged him. They might not have any evidence. They might have a murder weapon, but it's not. They have no idea if Nick did it or not. Maybe. Uh, and there's probably a good chance that Nick was left in the will, being that they say Mr. Reiner was worth over $200 million, and probably more than that, probably double. And if Nick is in the will, and let's just say Nick inherits 3/4 of what he was. I mean, he's got millions now. We're talking 50, maybe more $1 million if it's split up between the three kids. Uh, so now he's got tons of buku money. But now I would imagine Mr. Alan Jackson is probably checking into this will and uh, seeing exactly what's going on, because there's a good chance where in the will Nick was left buku money and property, uh, and then Mr. Alan Jackson would also probably go to court for that, uh, to make sure Nick gets his portion of the will. But as this video is saying, they could change that, being that he might be the murderer.
Reiner, who has long maintained a degree of separation from the rest of the family's public narrative, is suddenly positioned as a key figure in the future of the estate.
Yo, Miss Debbie
Jake
Fox.
Reiner, whose creative career has remained largely private, is now
Yo, Miss Fox, can you hear me okay?
an adult beneficiary, navigating an inheritance shaped by tragedy rather than celebration. Romy Reiner, who according to sources cited by people discovered her parents' bodies, carries a burden no legal document can account for. None of them asked for this version of events. None of them planned to inherit under these conditions. Yet the financial reality remains. Rob Reiner's wealth did not vanish with him. Castle Rock Entertainment continues to operate. Licensing agreements remain active. Royalties from films continue to accrue. Streaming platforms continue to pay. The estate grows even as it waits, and waiting is the most dangerous part, because waiting invites speculation. Media attention has increasingly focused on Nick Reiner's past, searching for explanations, patterns, or warning signs. Reports of struggles with addiction and periods of instability have resurfaced. These details are not charges, they are not verdicts, but they shape public perception. And public perception has a way of bleeding into legal narratives, even when it should not. Authorities continue to stress that the investigation is ongoing. No final determinations have been announced. Autopsy results are pending. The legal process has not concluded.
All right, I watched a video today, Debbie, and they said the autopsy report came in. And from what the queen of YouTube crime was saying, that they were stabbed multiple times, throat laceration, uh, a very gory death. And the coroner said it was a death that looked like it was done by a mad mental person, psychotic. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I looked up on the internet to see if I could see reports, and the only thing that came up was that guy's video. But he's saying the report is out. The coroner made a report on it, and I guess it wasn't very good. Now, the thing with the will, that could be when they're dealing with millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Then yes, I can see how people have blood in their eyes. They want that money. It's sad they can't wait, but we've seen people where they plan it. When you're worth that much money. Now, I'm not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. It ain't worth it. You know, if anyone came to me like that and said, what do you think? If they're worth, tons of money, I would still say it ain't worth it. Why risk it? Ride it out. If you don't get nothing, you don't get nothing. Then you can piss on their graves when they're done putting them in the ground. You might walk away with something. Something is better than nothing, but to go and do something like this and totally take the chance of getting caught and losing everything, right? Then your family goes up against you to court. I don't think he should have anything. Very stupid move. All right, let's continue with this video. I'm almost done with it.
But estate law does not require certainty to begin preparing for outcomes. It prepares for all of them simultaneously. In the background, attorneys analyze scenarios. One path leads to Nick Reiner retaining his place as an heir, subject to standard distribution rules. Another path leads to his complete exclusion. A third path leads to prolonged litigation, appeals, and years of frozen assets. Each path carries financial consequences not just for Nick, but for everyone connected to the estate. Castle Rock Entertainment, for example, cannot transition ownership stakes tied to Rob Reiner's personal holdings until the estate is settled.
Neural DSP's Cortex line raises the bar for digital effects modelers and profilers.
That affects governance, long-term planning, and executive authority. Real estate holdings cannot be sold, transferred, or leveraged without clarity. Trust distributions remain locked. Charitable commitments, if any exist, are paused. Everything waits for one thing: resolution. Rob Reiner spent his life controlling narratives, on screen and off. He understood timing, he understood structure, he understood consequences, and yet, in death, his legacy has entered a narrative he can no longer shape, one governed not by storytelling, but by statute. The uncomfortable truth is this: in California, there exists a legal principle so strict that it can override even the most carefully written estate plan. A principle that does not ask about intent, emotion, or family bonds. It asks only one question: did an heir cause the death of the person whose estate they seek to inherit? For now, that question remains unanswered. But its existence alone has already changed everything. Because if the answer ever becomes yes, the law does not hesitate. It erases. And as the investigation continues, Rob Reiner's fortune remains suspended between two futures. One where all 4 children share in the wealth their father built, and another where one name is removed entirely, not by family choice, but by legal force. The line between
I got to move back out there to California, IA. And you got to be good with will. You got to. America has become so corrupted. And now this is very sad that it happened. The other family members will probably suffer from this because now everything's locked down. And you gotta wait to go to court. And now there's an investigation with a murder case and all this. Everything gets locked down. Now, don't get me wrong. Them businesses, corporations, and movie companies, and anything that Mr. Reiner and Mrs. Reiner name was on, will continue to bring in proceeds and royalties and money, and it will go into the estate account. You're talking Mr. Reiner, Rob Reiner, his father was a comedian, actor, and a bigwig in Hollywood back in the early days of Hollywood. Royalty, Hollywood royalty, they would call him. Excuse me. So I imagine Mr. Reiner, Rob Reiner, inherited all his father's stuff also, which probably is still, if they still run old Rob Reiner movies and skits and comedy stuff, I imagine Mr. Reiner, the gentleman we're looking at now, probably is getting royalties from that if he was in the will and was left things. So it's a money generating corporation that Mr. Reiner created. He took it way farther than his father did. He created movie companies and bought a bunch of real estate. I was listening to a video the other day. When he bought real estate, he would buy real estate where movie stars already, it was very profitable, the houses he bought. I think the house that this murder occurred in belonged to a movie star or somebody. So, he's constantly bringing in money. And that all goes into the estate. And as we know of now, the estate is on lockdown. That means there's no payouts or anything. It'll probably have to go through the courts. The family probably will have to wait. And there might be a law out there where if somebody that you're leaving money to is trying to kill you, or they have a life insurance policy in your name, and they themselves are trying to kill you or whatever, it all gets on lockdown, all stopped until the investigation is over. So very touchy situation. It might be a while before any of the other kids, get anything, or any of the other family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, whoever. It might be a while before they get it because everything now is on lockdown.
Between those two futures is thin, and it is drawn not in memory but in court. As the investigation moved forward, the silence around the estate grew heavier, not because nothing was happening, but because everything was happening out of sight. This is how high-value estates operate during uncertainty. Quietly, methodically, every action is documented, every communication is measured, nothing is left to chance. At this stage, the most important word is not inheritance, it is eligibility. Under California law, a person does not become an heir simply by being named in a will or trust. They must remain legally qualified at the moment the estate is distributed. That distinction matters more than most people realize, because it means inheritance is not a promise. It is a status that can be lost. For Nick Reiner, that status now hangs by a thread. While the criminal case proceeds, probate courts treat his position as provisional. He is neither confirmed nor dismissed. He is held in suspension.
I promise you, if you continue to disrespect me, unfortunately for you, you're not going to have a career afterwards.
That's going to be a good fight. The Tate fight, that's coming up, I think, on December 20th. Somebody pissed him off. He's going for the world title, I think.
And that suspension carries consequences. Trust administrators are prohibited from making discretionary distributions to a beneficiary whose eligibility is in question. Estate executors are barred from granting authority or access. Even communication can become restricted, filtered through legal counsel to avoid the appearance of favoritism or premature judgment. This creates an unusual imbalance. Nick Reiner, while alive and legally presumed innocent, is functionally absent from the estate. He cannot benefit. He cannot influence. He cannot plan. His financial future remains entirely contingent on a legal outcome that may take years to finalize. In contrast, the remaining heirs occupy a different position. Tracy Reiner, as an established adult with an independent career, is viewed by courts as a stable beneficiary. Jake Reiner, though less public, is similarly positioned. Romy Reiner, despite her youth and trauma, remains legally eligible. Their shares, while not yet distributed, are not questioned. They exist in waiting, not in doubt. This distinction reshapes the internal dynamics of the estate. Decisions that once would have required consensus among siblings now proceed without Nick's involvement. Interim trustees make judgments based on legal eligibility, not family hierarchy. It is not punitive, it is procedural, but procedure carries weight. Castle Rock Entertainment continues to generate revenue, but strategic decisions involving long-term ownership remain paused. Licensing renewals move forward. Development projects continue. Employees are paid. But structural changes are avoided. No one wants to alter the foundation of a company tied to an estate that has not yet settled. The same applies to real estate. Properties are maintained, not liquidated. Investments are managed conservatively. Risk is minimized. Growth is deprioritized. Preservation becomes the goal.
Wow. That sucks. That sucks. There, you got to watch that will and the person in charge of it and the government. That's a lot of money, right? I bet you they are hoping it all locks down so they can get their hands into it. What do you do with something like that? You can hire a lawyer, right? But until the courts go through it and will the people that are stable get money right off the bat? I don't know. I don't know. Being there's an investigation, how deep are they going to go in this investigation? Are they going to investigate the whole family, the whole thing? It's pretty crazy because there's rumors that Mr. Reiner was a bad parent and hated his kid or whatever. And then you hear rumors that he was a good parent and did whatever, and then you hear them rumors behind closed doors. He was a monster to his kids, and who knows. But whenever there's money involved, yeah, I imagine they're hoping the courts get a hold of it. This estate, why? Because it sucks money up. They got to pay for lawyers, court time, court fees. Yeah, this could go on for years, like this lady saying, before anyone's paid. That's just horrible. That's horrible, but that's what money does. That's what money does. There ain't no, rich is rich. It ain't my money. It's their money. I might get something when they die. Who knows? But I ain't going to go ahead and wreck my life and kill them and end up in prison. That's just stupid. He had to have hated his parent. He must have been either tortured through life or he was a stubborn brat and was a very evil person to do that. If he did it, he's innocent until proven guilty. Let me see what Debbie Fox says. Yeah, right. They were the only ones to support that trash bag. Yeah, well, maybe in public they acted and talked like they supported him, but behind closed doors, he was exactly as Miss Debbie said, trash bag. Abuse. You ain't never going to be nothing your whole life. You're a waste of it. How could I even do? We don't know. We don't know. And that's the sad thing. We don't know. But now everyone in the family suffers. Unless they're in the will and stable. This lady is saying that 3 of his kids are stable. So they should be paid out. But it don't work that way, Brian. The whole thing's probably locked out. We don't know. This could have been a whole. I was watching one video on YouTube, and they said this had the hints of a Bandez brothers or whatever. What's their name, Debbie? Them 2 brothers that killed their parents, McMahons, or whatever their name is. Mendez, the Mendez brothers. That they think there might be other people involved. Nick might have been set up. Oh, wow, this gets even more interesting. He took out the only two people that cared about him. That's what Debbie said. Well, maybe. What if he didn't? What if he left and someone killed him? We don't know. We can't believe everything we're hearing on YouTube. I know that. Debbie said, no way. No way. Well, he might be in the will, being that his parents loved him, Debbie. And they might have had a speculation if they were worried about him and afraid of him. They might have had something wrote up in the will that stated he gets this amount of money if he is not the one that kills us to get it. That might have been in the will. We don't know. Debbie says, nah, they have DNA. Well, then it must be him if they're saying it's him. But now, is he entitled to that money if he was in the will? Or is it true what this lady is saying in this video, where the state of California can say, you ain't getting no money? But see, now, Nick's lawyer, Mr. Alan Jackson, could take that will and testament to court and fight for it for Nick to get his share so Nick can pay him to represent him in the murder trial. I don't know, maybe. Maybe. Debbie says, hell no, he isn't entitled. Well, I was wrote out of the will. All right? People just hate me because probably because I lay down the truth sometimes. I'm an idiot myself. I'm a dirtbag myself. Just a dirtbag. I don't care what people think. I'm a good person. There's no way I would kill somebody if I was in a will, even if the will was for quadrillions of dollars. There's no way I'm not that type of person. Hello, Miss Melanie. I come for Trump. He's in there. Melania, Mrs. Trump. Yeah, he's running around here. I wish you'd put a leash on him. Every goddamn broad that comes in my chat, he's all over and wants photos sent, feet pictures and everything. Put a chain on him, please. By the way, you're very beautiful. No, you're a lucky man, Trump. No. Let's get back to this will and testament.
Every dollar earned during this period adds to the eventual inheritance pool, but who will ultimately receive those dollars remains unclear. Public attention, meanwhile, continues to swirl around Nick Reiner's past. Media outlets revisit old interviews, social media posts, and second-hand accounts. Reports of addiction struggles, rehabilitation efforts, and periods of instability resurface. These details are framed as context, not evidence. Authorities have not cited them as factors in the investigation, but context has power, especially when narratives are forming faster than facts.
Everyone's gearing up for the holidays. In a Chevy of their choice. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
All right,
Law enforcement agencies remain cautious in their statements. Investigators have emphasized repeatedly that the case is ongoing. No final conclusions have been announced. Autopsy results are pending. The legal process has not reached a charging decision that would trigger irreversible consequences. And yet, the estate cannot ignore the possibility. This is where California's most unforgiving inheritance principle begins to loom larger. a principle that does not care about timing, intent, or remorse, a principle that activates only after conviction, but whose presence shapes every decision long before. The principle states that if a person is convicted of murdering or committing voluntary manslaughter against the decedent, that person is deemed to have predeceased the victim for inheritance purposes. The legal fiction is absolute. The person is erased from the line of succession as though they never existed. If that were to happen here, Nick Reiner's share of the estate would not be held in reserve. It would be redistributed. The law does not punish by confiscation. It reallocates.
All right, it would be redistributed throughout the family. So now you have to look at this as a sci-fi killer or horror movie or whatever they call it. Where did the rest of the family conspire against Nick to get him totally out of the will? Right? Because they're saying that his daughter is saying that he's the one that did it. The mother said that before she passed away. This is getting interesting, ain't it? Hello, Mrs. and Mr. Trump. How are you doing tonight? It's good to see you here. I'm sorry that my chat is not as big as the ballroom at the White House, which I already got calls today on. You're going to have to rush that job real fast, sir. Let's get back to this. But we're finding out now that if he's found guilty, he's wiped clean of the will. His share of the will gets distributed to the rest of the people within the will. This is just horrifying. The death is horrifying. A great man lost. A great creator, writer, funny guy, movie man. You name it. You name it. He had his hands in everything. Love stories, right? The women loved all them when Harry met Sally, when she had that orgasm on the silver screen. I remember that. All the women and were going crying. No, I'm a straight man, and I was looking at that film going, oh my God, I wish I'd met a woman like that. But he had his hands in everything. Plus, big real estate. Big real estate. Big properties. Whew, man.
That reallocation could dramatically increase the portions received by the remaining heirs. Tracy Reiner, Jake Reiner, Romy Reiner, or it could trigger alternate distributions outlined in private trust documents, charitable foundations, educational endowments, creative institutions. Causes Rob Reiner supported quietly for years. None of this can be confirmed without access to the estate plan, but the mechanisms.
Debbie, you are not a dyke. I said you can play the role as a Viking woman that was a dyke. I didn't say you were. Good God, woman.
Clear. What is less clear is how the family prepares emotionally for a future where one sibling is not just absent, but legally erased from a legacy built by their father. Rob Reiner once spoke publicly about growing up as the son of Carl Reiner and Estelle Reiner. He described the privilege of opportunity, but also the pressure of expectation. He spoke about refusing financial assistance, about earning his place, about separating love from entitlement. Those words now echo differently. Because the law may soon enforce a version of that philosophy with no room for interpretation. As the case continues, the estate remains frozen between two realities, one where Nick Reiner remains an heir and one where he is permanently excluded. The difference between those realities is not measured in dollars alone. It is measured in how a family story will be told for generations. And the closer the investigation moves towards resolution, the more unavoidable the final question becomes. Not who will inherit Rob Reiner's fortune, but who will be legally allowed to.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock rewards with Google Play Points.
Part
Well, who will be legally able to collect from there? I don't know. I'm hoping I get a phone call or someone comes and knocks on my door. Mr. Kramer? Yes. We're from the Will and Testament of Hollywood, of all Hollywoods. You have been left to all kinds of. You were in charge of Castle Rock. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? We're going to do another 5 Spinal Taps. Love stories. I got love stories for you guys. I've been dragged through crap, stepped all over in love. I know love stories. But now who's legally going to be able to collect? Who knows? I can tell you this much. There ain't nobody getting their money first except for the government and the courts. And what's left probably will be distributed. We don't know if this is a grab for the money. With all the government people and the president and everyone saying that this country is so corrupt, by the time this is done, they might get a knock at the door. Yeah, we're here. This is what you get from your family's death. It's a check for 25 cents. You don't know. It's crazy. And we got to change. We got to get if you were in another country, this wouldn't happen. They're strict on wills and people's deaths and stuff like that. The way they bury people, and in America, we don't know what they do to you in the funeral homes. We have no idea where they're put or what, if they're even our parents or our family or whatever. It's pretty crazy.
4. By the time the investigation reaches its legal conclusion, the emotional questions will no longer matter. Grief will not matter. Intent will not matter. History will not matter. Only the final judgment will. Because California law does not weigh tragedy. It enforces outcome. At the center of this case sits a statute that has existed for decades, rarely discussed until moments like this force it into the open. It is known formally as the Slayer Rule, sometimes referred to as the Slayer Statute. Its purpose is not symbolic, it is mechanical. And once activated, it is absolute. The rule is simple in language and brutal in effect. Any individual who is convicted of the murder or voluntary manslaughter of another person is legally prohibited from inheriting from that person's estate. The prohibition is total. It applies regardless of whether the individual is named in a will. It applies regardless of trust provisions. It applies regardless of family relationship. It applies regardless of intent expressed by the deceased during their lifetime. The law's position is clear. No one is allowed to profit from the death they caused. If Nick Reiner is ultimately convicted in connection with the deaths of Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner, he will not receive any portion of their estate, not a share, not a payout, not future royalties, not residual income, not equity, not real estate, nothing. He would be legally barred from inheriting assets of any kind tied to his parents. He would also be prohibited from serving in any fiduciary role related to the estate. That means
All right, there's Rob Reiner and his dad, his dad was real big in the Hollywood. All right, so it looks like if this is all true and Nick is the killer, you're screwed, Nick. I mean, you could take it to court and probably try and fight it, but if the laws are in California, if you kill somebody that you have a will with, you don't get nothing. Woo. Boy, I feel sorry for you, idiot. My God, what a stupid move. You know, you can hate your family, but you're best off staying away from them. Maybe try and patch it up. Maybe you'll get something. Maybe the family silverware, right? The stainless steel silverware or something. Maybe a set of curtains or something. Who knows? Maybe money. You don't know. But to kill, I don't. It goes back to money is the root of all evil. Maybe he killed him because his parents said, "You're out of the will. We love you, but we're not leaving you nothing. You're a crazy madman." And he flipped out and killed him. I don't know. Maybe the family conspired for Nick to take the fall. Nick, that's one less to collect the money. You just heard it for yourself. The law states if he does it, his share or whatever he was going to get in the will is distributed back to the family. So they all he gets nothing, zero zilch. And that even goes for the movie that he created with his father, which he probably got proceeds and royalties from, which now he gets nothing from even that because his father was involved with that. So he would get nothing from that. Possibly. They would say, you don't get nothing from that because that was a project, a collab with your father. And his name was all over the movie and you don't get nothing from that. Woo, man. Boy, Nick, I'd have to say you really screwed the pooch if you did do it. And if someone is setting you up, boy, they really screwed the pooch on you. And I've been there before. So you have to take that in consideration. Keep an open mind in this case, folks. It's ongoing. And what we're going to see is this whole thing, the whole history of the family, the whole thing unravel in front of our faces in court. Mr. Alan Jackson has got his hands full, especially that this has come out about the will and he's not going to get nothing. And this might be a pro bono to get him off. And if he does get off, is he still entitled to anything in the will? If they find him not guilty, then he would get portions from the will. Then he'll be a rich man. But I don't know. It's like going to Vegas and rolling dice or the craps table or whatever they call it. Right? One roll, you crap out. Who knows? All right. Is there anything else going on? What's Valdez say? What movie did you hate, Debbie? Oh, he's talking to his girlfriend. They will strip everything from him, Debbie said. I believe you, Deb. When Harry met Sally. She's answering Valdez. She said, hi, Christopher. Hug, kisses, smile, upside down, flip flop. And Valdez says, I never saw that movie. Spinal Tap is my all-time favorite. Oh, I hear the new one coming out is just as crazy. It's going to be great. It's just going to be great. Who knows? They might have all got pissed because they found out Mr. Reiner left me everything. Screw all you people. All you want is money from me. Giving everything to Johnny Kramer. They probably got pissed he wanted to support one of my movies. Who knows? I can only dream that Mr. Reiner would have thought I was funny and interested in one of my movies. I'm telling you, I thought Rob Reiner was one funny writer. That whole Spinal Tap thing is just unbelievable. It's old English humor. It's like Benny Hill. Benny Hill was a genius. He was a genius. He was a great writer, and he was a great funny man. And the chicks loved Benny Hill. He was a ladies' man, and he was loaded. They still play Benny Hill on TV today, reruns of Benny Hill show today. Still today, his trust fund or will still brings in money today. Unbelievable amounts of money. Benny Hill. Dude was very kind, and he was very polite, and the women loved him. Michael Jackson, yeah, there's another one that still generates money. Michael Jackson estate. There's another one. Still brings in tons of money, but you know, you're talking a different thing with Mr. Reiner. This guy, he owned movie businesses, properties, uh, other companies and stuff. This dude was smart. The dude was pretty smart. All kinds of documentaries and stuff. He had a hand in. And the dude he was even a ghostwriter, I bet, on some of these real big movies. That you wouldn't think that he had a hand in, or people asked, what do you think we should do in this scene, or writing a script, where do you think we should go with this? And the dude was a genius. But look at the people he surrounded himself with. Billy Crystal, very funny person. Uh, very funny man. He was on many comedy things, and Robin Williams. Do I have to say anything more about Robin Williams? That guy was in comedy, movies, TV. He was like another John Belushi. He covered all the three bases: music, movies, and TV. Animal Planet, Pitbull, Parole, History Channel, American Hero Channel. Dude was. I would have to say Mr. Reiner was a generating money machine, and you have to look outside the family. I was in a chat earlier in a live that someone did, and someone was saying it was Conan O'Brien. I don't know. Would Conan do something like that? I mean, the fight did break out at his house. But what kind of pool does the redhead wild man of late night have? I don't know. He could be Scotland mob. Who knows? Mob or Ireland, wherever he's from. This is getting. There's a movie within this whole madness. Excuse me. Only cause Debbie Fox says, only cause I take care of two giant pits. Oh. I hope that you don't let them in your bed and stuff. Dog hair all over. All right, we're almost done with this. Folks, I guess Miss ATS News is going live later on tonight. We're waiting for that. And, that might change. We don't know. When you got kids, anything can change. Valdez just came in and said, I like Chihuahua, Perot. I haven't seen Chihuahua Parole. I had a Chihuahua myself. I loved him, Spike. Uh, you know, I think he was in a couple of my first Facebook videos that I did of cover songs. He was in a couple of them videos, and he passed away. It was just too much for me. Heartbreaking. Uh, nah. Christopher, she likes smaller dogs too. Uh, Excuse me. Let's get back to this.
Means no appointment as executor, no role as trustee, no authority as guardian or conservator. The law removes him completely from the legal structure surrounding the inheritance. In legal terms, Nick Reiner would be treated as if he had predeceased his parents. That distinction matters because the estate does not collapse. It does not disappear. It moves on without him. Any share that would have gone to Nick Reiner would instead pass to the next eligible heirs, Tracy Reiner, Jake Reiner, Romy Reiner, or to alternate beneficiaries named within private trust documents.
Johnny
The
Kramer.
redistribution happens automatically under the statute once a conviction is entered. No family vote, no discretion, no appeal to sentiment. This is why estate proceedings cannot move forward until the criminal case is resolved. Trustees and probate courts are required to wait. They cannot distribute assets that might later be subject to statutory disqualification. Every dollar earned by the estate during this period is held in suspension, accumulating quietly, while the legal system determines who is allowed to receive it. Castle
Yeah, Valdez. Boy, ain't she a lucky lady, Tracy? Yeah, she was the adopted one with Penny Marshall. And is Penny still alive? Well, wasn't she the one that was the daughter of Papa John from Papa Mamas and the Papas? All the leaves are brown, all the leaves are brown. The sky is gray, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk, I've been for a walk on a winter's day. Ain't that her dad or something like that? And wasn't she abused and sexually abused through from her father or something like that? That was crazy.
Rock Entertainment continues to operate, but ownership transitions tied to Rob Reiner's personal holdings remain paused. Royalties from films like The Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally continue to flow into estate accounts, but no beneficiary touches them. Real estate holdings remain intact, managed but untouched. Investment portfolios are preserved, not expanded. Everything waits for a verdict. The public often assumes that inheritance is automatic, especially for wealthy families, that blood guarantees access, that a last name ensures entitlement. California law rejects that assumption completely. It does not ask who you are. It asks what the court determines you have done. Rob Reiner spent his life constructing a legacy rooted in discipline, accountability, and control. His fortune was not inherited easily, it was earned slowly. In death, that fortune is now governed by the same principle he often spoke about publicly. Responsibility determines access. If
Oh,
Nick
you're right,
Reiner is
Valdez.
convicted, the law will not
You're
allow
right.
him to carry his
Confused.
father's wealth forward. Not because of public opinion, not because of media pressure, but because California statute leaves no alternative. The irony is stark. The question that has dominated public conversation since December 14th was never really a question at all. It only appeared that way because the process had not yet finished. Once it does, the answer becomes final. Nick Reiner will inherit nothing. Not because a family chose it, not because a will demanded it, but because the law requires it. And that is where Rob Reiner's $200 million legacy ultimately lands, not in speculation, not in debate, but in the cold certainty of a statute designed to ensure that wealth follows the law, not blood, and legacy follows accountability, not name.
This is Jess. She needs her money to work as hard as she does. That's why she uses US Bank Bank Smartly Checking and Savings, helping her track her spending and grow.
All right, that's the end of the video, folks. I want to thank everyone for stopping in. We're at 1 hour. We made it to an hour video. I want to thank all of you. It sucks to be Nick. You could have been on top of the world, dude. On top of the world. I mean, they might not have liked you and left you that much. We're only leaving him $20 million. You're 20 million short now, idiot. I'm sorry. I'm just joking. He's innocent until proven guilty. There's a good chance he's innocent. And if he's not found guilty in the law, then he is entitled to that portion of whatever he was going to get out of the estate. So Mr. Alan Jackson's probably going to throw one heck of a case on. If Nick walks away and is found not guilty, then that means he gets proceeds from the will and testament properties, Castle Rock, movie production, numerous things. But as it stands now, from what they're saying, they're charging him with double murder. And it don't look good for old Nick. So good luck, Nick. But I can tell you right now, if you did this, you're an idiot. You would have been on top of the world. And you would have been rich. Still an idiot, but rich. All right, let's see who else is coming in. His goose is cooked, maybe. It could be. No, I hear this Alan Jackson guy is supposed to be like the guru of law and defense lawyers. I'll tell you what, if Nick walks out of this not guilty, Alan Jackson is going to be a very high demand man. He already is. But if he gets Nick off of this, and then Nick's able to get his inheritance, Nick might be a very rich man. And so we're talking 200 million plus. They're just estimating it right now. There's a good chance that they don't even know on some of the stuff that he had a hand in, was working on, and also, collaborating with. So I would say it's probably about 200 million plus. Maybe. Because it's still bringing in money. It's still generating money and bringing in proceeds and royalties and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah. A very horrible day for the Reiner family. My condolences. And sucks to be you, Nick. Wow. All right. You folks have a great night. God bless. I want to thank everyone for stopping in. Make sure you check out Miss ATS News channel tonight. I do believe at 10 o'clock tonight. God bless you all. There's Mr. Trump. He came back into chat with the American flag. Trump, Mrs. Melania is looking for you. She came in earlier. What a beautiful lady. What a beautiful lady. Tall lady. Long legs. Very beautiful lady. You're lucky to have a beautiful lady like that, Trim. God bless you all. I'll be back later.